Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on this wonderful Tuesday afternoon, depending on where you're located. I doubt anybody from our Asia Pacific clients are on, since I think it's about midnight their time, maybe 2 a.m., but we are recording it for them. This webinar really is for end users of iImport or Activity Importer Plus, but we do invite almost all of our clients. And so you already know about us. We've been around since '92, just celebrated 25 years in business, and we like to think of ourselves as the leading provider of add-on products to the iMIS community. To us, a product is user installable, has a manual, and is backed by a full-time support team, which we got a checkbox on all three of those. So, our first product that we created way back when was iMerge. It's still the most powerful duplicate merge product out there, and we have quite a few customers using that. We're going to be doing a webinar on that in about 15 days to show you how people have been able to take control of this minor duplicate issue that we're seeing happening out there with everyone creating web accounts. Meeting Closer was our second product, still pretty popular today. Closes your events, creates the CUs, no data is lost from iMIS. iEmail is actually our most popular product. It's the best tool for, fastest tool, if you will, to email. But really what people are doing with it these days are storing both sent and received emails in iMIS, enabling them the full CRM type integration. IMAP is our geolocation tool. CSI Donate is the most powerful donation product for iMIS. We call it a single page customizable giving solution. And what we mean by single page is you do the entire donation in one single page. You can make as many pages as you want, but it is designed to be presented when you do present it for any kind of appeal or campaign. It's in a single page. Page filter, there's a lot of people tweaking Rise these days, and they're doing it in very cool ways where you can just drop some code on a page. The problem is you better remember every page that has code. And if you need to do it for multiple pages, you need to drop that code on multiple pages. Page filter eliminates all that, keeps all your changes in one location. You can turn them on or off very easily, and you can put them on multiple pages. If you're a fundraising client and you don't have FREs, Fundraising Made Easy, shame on you. Contact us. We do not know of a single fundraising client that should not have this product. It really is what you need to edit a posted gift or pledge after the fact, from changing everything from a campaign or appeal to incoming installment amounts, all sorts of fun things, names, list ads, things you just can't change in iMIS once the batch is posted. Our iDocument product is our newest product. It's been out for almost 3 years now. Really designed to document your iMIS database before you lose that key person on staff that takes all the knowledge with them. And then why you came here today, of course, is iImport. And so what are we going to cover today? Well, I want to go over some best practices / tips and tricks. Once again, you probably already have the product. You may not be using the latest version of it. So I'm going to show you some interesting things with iImport. Some of it's new, and some of it is just stuff that we've seen customers run into. We're going to go into the, this sounds like a Jeopardy question, help my database is messed up, when iImport flags you that you've got a problem. We're talking about a new feature that we just added to iImport. We're going to just be open and honest here and tell you about a big old bug we had in the product before and how to correct it. And then we're going to do a really quick import just to take you through everything I showed you in the PowerPoint. Jump over to Activity Importer Plus after that, and we're going to show you how to use data from iImport. So when I finish up that import with iImport, I'm going to actually use the data that came back for Activity Importer Plus. We're going to talk about importing sales and order activities. It's not something you really should be doing, but customers are importing all sorts of fun things these days, and there's a couple tricks when you do those two types of activities. Then I'm going to just touch on this. We touch on this almost all the time. Very, very powerful feature of AI Plus, and that's the ability to create activities from an IQA. We'll make sure you know what the most recent version is. So, iImport right now, this year might be our hottest selling product, and that's because what we're seeing is lots of people are bringing in data from their outside sources. They want to update data on their own. I had a customer recently that mistakenly changed their prefix setup in iMIS. they took the period off Mr. And so they had about half their records had a period on them and half the records did not have a period. And she said, well, how do we fix that? And I said, well, I'll write you a script. It'll be a couple hours of billable time, you know, but we'll fix it. And then she said, can't I just use iImport and fix it myself? And there was a little pause there, and I'm like, damn, yes, you can use iImport and fix it yourself. So what we're seeing, and we're very happy with that, by the way, we're seeing people actually updating and fixing iMIS data on their own using this product without having to reach out for help from the solution provider or ASI. And we think that's one of the main reasons we made these products, so that you can do this stuff on your own and you don't need our help. A lot of people are now presetting user credentials, so as they import new records and or they go out there and they say there's no way for an individual to actually reset their password if they don't have any user credentials. That's a fact of iMIS. So if I am Doug Morris and I'm in your database, I cannot get my username and password if it's never been created. So we've got people actually going out there and using iImport to set a default set of user credentials for individuals, with their login often being their email, and then maybe their password being last four of their last name, first of their first name, and maybe their zip code, something like that that only they would really know. So people are doing that, and then even if they don't remember that password, they can do a simple reset. So that's something they're doing. And then a lot of people are actually using it. They used to call this merge purge, but really it's importing and updating at the same time. That was something added to the product a couple years ago, and we just continue to enhance it. So pretty hot stuff. So let's talk about some best practices here. I show this in all my demos, and I always forget that I need to focus on it. When you've gone into iImport and you've gone and you've mapped all of your fields and you've done all the work in here to do a nice import, go out there and hit save. What that's going to do is save the actual mapping that you did. We call it a template. And it's going to save that so that you can reuse it. And that's important because nothing's worse than doing all the mapping and then remembering that your spreadsheet's slightly out of date, closing iImport on accident, going back in and realizing all your work is gone. So please don't hesitate to save the template or the mapping. So in this case, it's going to save that I have NM there. It's going to save that I have match on check, first name, email. There's a lot of fields you could fill out with iImport, and it's really good to save that template. And then if you do save it, don't forget to load it. When you jump back into iImport, I always like to start with a template that I've already created. It's going to make sure I get all those core fields, such as last name, such as member type. If I don't remember to set the member type on an import, iImport is going to use the iMIS Business Objects IBO, and it's going to go and set the member type to my default web member type, which I rarely want for an import. So I like to start with a template. I think it works good. Don't forget, you don't have to have all of the data in your spreadsheet. In this example, I've actually set my member type to NM. It's going to be NM on every record I import. You can see the color difference there. That means I've actually hard-coded it into the iImport screen. And when I save my template, it will save that as well. So I don't need a field in my spreadsheet that is NM repeated over and over again. I always recommend if you're going to do an import and you don't want duplicates, go ahead and choose the match on. Match on really is used to determine if you want to update or insert a record. What iImport is going to do is say if I match on all the fields that have a checkbox, and once again, each and every field has to match perfectly. If I match on those, I'm going to consider that record as already existing in iMIS, and I'm going to update it. Okay? Otherwise, if the first name, last name, and email do not match with any records in the database, I'm going to insert it. And you go, okay, that's great, Doug, but I really only want to be doing importing. I don't want to update a record if it already exists. So don't forget, you don't have to import and or update every record it found. In this case, my importer said, hey, you got 25 new records we're going to be creating, but one record matched, and we're going to update that. Well, I can go right in there and uncheck that, And now I'm just going to do an import of the 25 records. So that's pretty cool. This is a hidden little feature, and you got to scroll all the way over to the right to see it. But after you have finished a successful import, if you click on the Show Me My Log, and I've got a screenshot of that later on, and you scroll all the way to the right, it's titled Column 2. And what it is, it's the IDs that were created and or updated from your spreadsheet. So you can go and click on that export file, and it will actually have all of the IDs now that were in your spreadsheet. So I can copy those then, paste them back into my spreadsheet, or I can save this file and do an activity import if I want. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But this is really powerful because people finish an import and they go, well, what IDs did it create? Well, they're right out there. And you're probably saying, hey, column 2, well, yeah. That's the great thing about doing these demos. We come across that. It's always been column 2. It's not until I put it into a screenshot and highlight it and I go, that's a stupid name. So there'll be an enhancement coming where we're going to title that, strangely enough, iMIS ID. The field to the left is actually the sequence number. So if there was a missing sequence number in there, you would know that record, say if record 9 was missing, you would know right there that it was skipped for any kind of reason. So that's pretty cool. Here's our records that we're going to be updating. Remember in my example, I really didn't want to update any records. The person that gave me the spreadsheet, they told me that it was all new records and none of them existed in iMIS. And sure enough, iImport has said, I got a problem. I'm going to be updating Johnny's spot here. Okay? So same sort of thing. I can hit export, and it's going to export that records to update. I can take that export, send it to my coworker, and say, hey, this guy already exists in the database. Next time, give me new members and new members only, or something like that. So you can export any portion of the result set. That can be the completed records, the incomplete, the records that are going to be inserted, the records that are going to be updated, and any records that it's going to skip. And notice it's telling me this, it's records to update. I haven't done the update, so I can export it, yell at my coworker, and move on from there. When you download iImport, at least for the last, I don't know, 6 months, you're going to see something cool where it says iImport with the version setup, and then a setup-x64.exe. EXE, the 64 one, is only if you're doing a whole bunch of records at once. So I would say my gut there is about 50,000 or more. We've got a client that is updating about 250,000. And what happens is, because iImport is making sure everything works before it does the import, it's got to store a lot of stuff in memory, and so it needs the 64-bit version. Ultimately, you're not going to go wrong if you use the 64-bit, but I just use the regular one. Heads up, can't use the 64-bit version if you are on like a really old version of Windows, like version 10. It's also not going to work if you are not on a 64-bit operating system. So a lot of Windows 7s were not 64-bit, and Windows 2003 probably isn't, depending like that. So you got to have somewhat more recent hardware and or software. You may see this occasionally, and this is iImport trying to save your butt. Basically what it's saying is we've got some corruption between iMIS and SQL. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go to Tools, Validate UD Setup, and you're going to get a cool kind of thing like this telling you here are all the issues I found. And like I said, that means that the field name and or type in iMIS, field type in iMIS, do not match what is in SQL, and you're kind of in trouble. Because iMIS thinks the field is one type, and SQL knows it's a different type. What does this look like? Well, here's a good example. I'm looking at my demographics, and in there, someone has spelled advertisers wrong in iMIS, but it's actually correct in SQL. So you can see the two fields are different. Here's another example. Someone has changed date certified in iMIS to a character field, but in SQL it's actually a date time. You're probably saying, well, what happened there? Well, someone went in and messed around with the user-defined tables in iMIS, and then when they were all said and done, they hit save, and then it came up with this fun little message saying, do you want to create and or update the server table? What that means is, do you want to update SQL with all the changes you made? And if you hit no on accident, you get this exact issue that we're talking about. iMIS you told iMIS that the field or the table is different, but you didn't let it update the SQL database. So iImport is going to have a problem with that. iMIS is going to have a problem with that. You may not even realize you have a problem. But iImport is going to tell you about it. It's going to tell you what fields need to be updated. So you're probably saying, well, how do I fix? So what our manual says is you should contact your solution provider or ASI for help in fixing. But because you took the time to hang out with us this afternoon, I'm going to show you how you can fix this. First step, you got to be brave. All right, you got to go in. But you don't want to be stupid. So make a backup of your database. Okay, so you want to be brave, but not stupid. You're going to go into iMIS. You're going to edit the table, same way you went in the first time to create this mess. Customers, setup module, general, additional windows, define tables. You're going to change the fields to match what SQL has. Okay, so in the example I showed you before, advertiser was spelled wrong. I'm going to fix it. Date certified is a character. I'm going to change it over to a date field. Okay, so you're going to go change those fields. When it prompts you to create and or update the server table, here you actually do want to say no, because we do not want iMIS going and updating the SQL table. The SQL table is already different from iMIS. So we're going to go in here and we're going to say no, because we're actually fixing iMIS to match SQL. If you have changes to do after the fact, then go do them after the fact. But in this case, go in and just simply make the changes in iMIS so that they are all matching what SQL has. I wouldn't mind you if you went back in after the fact and made one little change and created update the server table to make sure everything's together. But the first step, go through and answer no to that. Go back into iImport, okay, and run the tools validate user setup, and you should see the no error found. So it's a super powerful way to fix your database. It's not going to hurt if you have iImport to just go check this anytime you want, and then go fix the issue. All right. How about a new feature? Well, this is a little thing, and we're actually going to highlight it in the next release. We used to allow you to create user credentials without an email address, and that's technically a no-no. You cannot create user credentials in iMIS unless you have an email address. So we've gone out there and now modified the product so it will not create user credentials if you have forgotten to put an email address in there. But remember, iMIS cannot check to make sure that the usernames and, more importantly, the passwords meet your requirements. So maybe your password requirement for iMIS is they all have to be 8 characters long with at least 1 number. iImport cannot check that for you. You have to do it yourself. So you're going to get this message telling you better make sure you know what you're doing, read our user guide, and you better make sure you have an email address, and are you sure you want to continue. You only get this when you're doing user credentials. So go into your spreadsheet and make sure that all the passwords that you're going to be assigning your members meet your password requirement for iMIS. Talking about being open and honest, we were creating user credentials without emails. Sorry, it is fixed in version 4.2 and 9 and higher. Go ahead and email us at this email address if you'd like a script to identify and or fix any issues. You will only have those issues if you used iImport, previous versions of iImport, and we're bringing in user credentials. Alternatively, if you trick iImport into updating the email address on records, it will fix the issue. So in that case, I might create a quick IQA of IDs and email addresses, export that to a file, Then I'm going to go in. I would go in and change everyone's email address to something different and then go back in and update their records, resetting their email address. I personally like the script idea better, but if you don't want to wait for that, basically you just have to reset their email address, and when you do that, iImport is going to go and make sure the user credentials are all fixed. And I'm sorry. Most important thing I've learned in the last 2 weeks, don't forget to say you're sorry. All right, let's do a quick import. I'm going to take you through, hopefully not too fast, of everything I just showed you. All right? So I'm going to fire up iImport. Remember, you are welcome to install iImport on as many machines as you want. You can point it to your test databases. You can point it to anything you might want. Totally up to you. We don't mind, but don't give it out to people who have not been trained, because they corrupt your database. That's not our fault. Remember, if I did want to change over my test database, once I've mapped it in here, I can hit that drop-down arrow, and all my other URLs could be in here. So my test database and whatnot could be in there. So I'm going to go log into my Live. And once I'm in, I'm going to go find the file. So in this case, this is new and existing records with email addresses. This file might look a little bit like this. It's got a bunch of first names and last names. I've got some other stuff: spouse, sponsor, occupation, school attended. I do need to close the spreadsheet before I continue, because iImport needs access to it. So once again, I wanted to look at that spreadsheet from iImport. I just right mouse click on it and I hit open. That's pretty cool. I do that all the time. I forget to slow down and tell you about that. But you do have to close the darn spreadsheet before continuing. Okay. I keep editing it too. So here we go. I'm going to open up that spreadsheet. It's identified all my columns. Okay. Remember, if you have multiple sheets in your spreadsheet, you can use this little drop down to go to the other tabs and or sheets. I'm going to go next. Told you about my cool tip, right? I always want to load my template. It just saves time. In this case, I'm going to bring them all in as non-members. I'm going to go actually out here, though, and I'm going to map out an email address. That sounds pretty good. And I'm going to match on that as well. So I started with a template, and I've gone and added to it. So there are my credentials. There's my address. Maybe I've got some demographics mapped out there. All the work's been done for me. I like to go back out, though, and resave, because I did add that email address. And you can call it whatever you want. So import and update template. Maybe I want it to be the same name. Fine. Save, replace. Now I've updated my template. So we're ready to go. We're going to go down here and say import update. Because I've chosen match on some of the fields, notice there's a message down here basically saying, hey, I'm going to import everybody, but if they match on those other records, it's going to actually update them. So here we go. We're going to go import update. I get that message because I mapped my user credentials. It's telling me, heads up, read our manual. In fact, if one of those user credentials already existed in iMIS, so if the username already existed in iMIS, it's going to fail. So this is an important thing. I say yes. Here's my summary preview. We added this a couple years ago because people would hit go and they would corrupt their entire database. This gives you a chance to say, whoa, I didn't want to do that. So I've got 25 new records to be created, 1 matching record to get updated. That's crazy. I didn't want to update any records. What's going on here? I'm going to view the log. First one's kind of scary. Notice I haven't hit go yet, so there's no records completed or incomplete. Well, I've got a whole bunch of incomplete, but nothing's been completed. But here are the records that are actually going to be inserted. Here are the records that are going to be updated. And I talked about that. Wait a minute, I don't want to update that guy. I could hit export to file and then email that to someone and say, hey, this is crazy. Records to skip are going to be records that failed validation. You tried to put text into a date field, or you tried to put text into a numeric field. iImport's going to check that and yell at you. It can't check everything. It checks as much as it can, but that's the way it is. So there's my report. Back on the summary preview, remember, I don't have to do it all. I can say I do want to update that 1 record. I just want to bring in the 25 new records. So clicking continue will create 25 records. Great. Continue. It goes through. It brings in all the data. I now actually have my records completed out here. My incomplete record is the one because I didn't do the update. And then remember this. all the way over here is that column. Those are the IDs that were assigned. So I'm going to export this. I want those IDs. So I'm going to just overwrite the more records imported, save. Let's replace it, great, and saved. So there we go. Everything's great. I've exported all the records that were actually inserted. I close. I'm done. Life is good. So that is a quick way on how to do an import. In this case, remember, I created user credentials for all these people. I updated all my demographics. Notice my expiration date. Notice you can use iImport to even disable a login. So if you want to go out there and disable a whole bunch of logins for those members you no longer like, you can do that as well. Okay, let's jump back to our webinar. We did an import. That was pretty cool. So let's move on to Activity Importer Plus. Remember I said don't hesitate to use data from iImport. I'm going to show you this in a minute. You saw what I did there. I said, do you want to view the report? Yes. And column 2 has my IDs, and I hit export to file. All right? Now I can go in and create activities of all those new people. So in this case, I might say, hey, let's create a new member alert, and we're going to assign it to Brandy for her to follow up tomorrow. She's going to call these people and say, hey, welcome to our organization. We're so happy to have you as a member. Okay? Pretty cool thing to do there. Here's your hot tip on Activity Importer Plus. Little known fact that cost us a lot of time and effort because even people at CSI didn't know this. iMIS displays the data a little bit strange for sales and order activities. It actually stores the quantity field in activity.quantity. And you'd think that makes sense, and it kind of does, except that for every other activity type, the quantity field as displayed in iMIS is saved in activity.units. What? This is what I mean. Notice I have a sales activity on the left and a CEU on the right, and they both have their quantity fields filled out. They're titled different, but it's the exact same field per the display window. If I look at that data in SQL, notice the sales has the 1 stored in the quantity field, and the CEU is putting it in the units field. So this is important because, oh, I forgot I added all these cool little things. Why is this important? Because when you go to import into any known iMIS activity type, and these are the activity types that come with iMIS, we give you a warning. We give you a warning that kind of says, hey, you better know what you're doing, okay? Because there's some funky stuff going on here. And we added this cool little thing here for sales and order activity. Please see the user guide for specific instructions. So when I am importing into sales, I'm going to be filling out that quantity field. So from a clean screen, sales, we do not use that quantity field. We use this quantity field. But the fact is you really shouldn't be importing sales or order types anyway. It's not going to create the corresponding other entries in the database that you need. But some people want the activity in there. But just a heads up, if you bring in a sales or an order activity, that will have different mapping. Last hot tip here, using IQA. IQA is part of Activity Importer Plus. Really, really cool. It's really cool because any field from your IQA can be used, which means also filters and prompts are supported from IQA, but you've got to have one most important field, and that's your ID field. So in this case, I'm running the IQA. It's asking for an event filter. I'm running it. I'm getting a list of everyone. It already has the ID on it. Once I move on to the next screen, I'm now creating a call activity, and I'm using data from that IQA. So in this example, I want to call everyone who signed up last year for an event but didn't sign up this year. We also have a lot of clients using this that do fundraising cultivation. They might have an IQA that goes out there and says, find everybody that donated in the last 5 years but has not donated this year, because we're going to make a cultivation activity, and we're going to drop that into our moves management system, and we're going to go after those people. We're going to find out what happened, and maybe we can get them back donating again. So super powerful if you are doing fundraising. So quick demo with AI Plus. I'm going to go into Activity Importer Plus here. I'm going to log in. Same sort of thing. I can go into test. I can have this on multiple machines, multiple users. Can be using the product. We don't care. It's all included in your license fee. I'm going to browse out there, and here's that more records to be imported. That was that file that came from iImport that actually had the iMIS ID that was inserted in there. So I can see it right there. That's their iMIS ID. This is all the records that got imported. Cool. So I'm going to use that. Notice it's a CSV file. Most people are using Excel for AI Plus and iImport, but you don't have to. It does support CSVs. So I've gone through here. It's got all these fields in here. I don't really care. I'm going to go next. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go make a call activity. I'm grabbing the ID field from my export. It's called column 2. Like I said, we're fixing it. So now I can make a note here, call and welcome to the org. I can go out here and assign it to anybody I want. I'm going to assign it to Allison this time, right? And I can put a follow-up date. Sorry for those of you not in the U.S. I'm going to go and put our date format. In this case, I'm ready to go. I'm going to insert all of these. They're all going to be assigned to Allison. I'm going to say import 25 records. That's the same number I imported. Go. It's gone out there and created all of my activities. They all have call activities, so that's pretty cool. I like to get out of Activity Importer Plus. It's just a force of habit. You don't have to, but I'm going to jump back in again. And I'm going to just show you that. I'm going to show you 2 things here. First thing I'm going to show you is, again, if for some reason I was going to bring in those records again. And I decided to make this a sales or an order activity. That's where I get my warning. Really, I would not click that message because you want to be reminded all the time that sales and order activities are different. Click OK. In this case, I'm actually going to put it in the quantity field. And it's going to be dropped right in here if I had a quantity to go in there. So maybe I just want to put a 1 or something like that. This quantity field is ignored. Sorry, it's a fluke of iMIS. Okay? So I'm going to exit out one more time here. Exit out one more time. And the last thing I want to show you, because this is super powerful, it's using IQAs. You've got this little tab here. There's a little more setup involved if you want to use the IQA. If you are already using iEmail, it should appear automatically. If you are not using iEmail, there's a web service that needs to be installed on your app server. We can't read IQAs without being on the server. So I hit IQA. In this case, I can now drill into where I want to find that IQA. This one's under Queries Advanced Event. And this was the one I showed you before, right? Past registrants not yet registered for this year. So I'm going to run that. I went and said, give me an event filter, because I really don't want to do it for every event out there. I just want to do it for my NIAG events. There are 4 people out there. I've returned the iMIS ID. That's important. I also gave my summary of the last event they actually went to. So that sounds good. I hit save. I hit next. I'm going to go, in this case, sorry, I can't get creative here. I'd like to create a different type of activity, but call just seems natural. I've got the ID of the person. Maybe my note is going to be the last event they went to, the code. I'm going to go and assign it to anybody I want. Brittany seems bored. She gets assigned this one here. But I'm going to give her a couple days to call these people. So now I'm going to go out there and create an activity to call these people. It's going to have the code, the last event they went to. I could even put the description in if I wanted to. I hit import. It brings in 4 new records right from my IQA. So super cool, super powerful. All right. Heads up, I'm not going to go through how to download off our website. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. You did see that email address, support@csinc.com. Your latest version of AI Plus is 1.5.30. Notice you do see that when you first log into the product, and So if I start up AI Plus, any of our products is going to tell you right on that first screen. When you go to log in, it's going to tell you what the version you're using. It's right there. If you are prompted about licensing and self-licensing, please click yes. That goes to our server. It gets all the serial numbers that we have on file for you, and it'll self-license. Otherwise, you got to put a big old nasty license key in. iImport, the current version, I think that's wrong. I think it's 4.2.9, so we've got to update this. So if we look at iImport, we will see, oops, iImport is actually 4. Let's see if I'm right here. Let's see. Wrong one. Oh, it is 2.29. I thought it was 4.29. I had it wrong on an earlier screen. So it is 2.2.9 is the latest release. That's going up on our website. If it's not there now, it will be up this today. That's the version that just got released, so I encourage you to get that. If you have any questions, go ahead and fire them off in the window. I see we've already got some here. Hold on. Let's go ahead and look at those. Will iImport know the next ID to use will start with a certain number, such as when you use 37,001? So iImport will know the next version, or the next ID to use out of your iMIS database, provided you auto-assign IDs, which 99.9% of the people do. So you do not have to know what ID to use. In fact, it's not going to let you, well, maybe it will let you import the ID, but I doubt it. So that is just a heads up. It will automatically handle that for you. All right, so let's see. We'll have that one's been answered. Whoa. Hi, maybe it's more of a general iMIS question, but does iMIS allow importing of AR transactions? For example, our organization receives donations from our Salesforce membership database. Would we be able to use the list of donors and donation amounts and import these donations into iMIS? Would the import create the activity on the customer record? Thank you. Yes. Activity Importer Plus, if you saw the version I was using on mine, when I logged in, I actually was licensed for gift importing. So we have a version of Activity Importer Plus. It's an additional license, but it will bring in your gifts from a spreadsheet. So in that case, I might go out here and say Browse. I'm going to go and find my Excel ones. I'm pretty sure I've got a, oops, I'm in iImport. Let's go to Activity Importer Plus. In this case, I'm going to, notice I was bringing in negative gifts as well because I wanted to try that as well, but it does work. You can bring in requests. And so here's the gift importer. When I select that, I go through. You're going to need a couple things when you're doing fundraising. If you do try and bring in a gift, you don't have the module, it's going to give you a warning that it's only going to create the activity. But if you have the license for the gift importer, it's going to create all of the things you need. So there's also this now fundraising tab where you can set your salutation, merge, and sender code. Notice on the activity, there's the amount, the check. We are going to need a certain sort of thing. We need the distribution filled out. That's required. So yes, you can bring in gifts. You cannot bring in pledges, but you can bring in gifts with the product we have. Hope that answers that question. 1 second here. I think we've got more. Let's see. The next question is that one. I use Activity Importer Plus and iImport from a crystal report. Occasionally, some date fields aren't being imported and end up blank. Other times, the report pulls the data in. Any requirements on the field type? Mike, the field type, the best thing I can tell you to do is pull it into Excel first, right mouse click on the column header and set it to a date type. I suspect there's something in the field that iMIS, iMIS, because we're using IBO, is not liking on that. Worst case, do not hesitate to send that file to us. Feel free to, scrub out some of it, or all of it. Just say, hey, I'm sending you a file. I've scrubbed it. I've taken out all the important information I don't want you seeing. but it's not bringing in the dates on records 4, 6, and 7. Can you tell me what might be wrong? And we're happy to look at that for you. So if you can't, like I said, best practice, bring it into Excel. To show you that right now. I think you know how to do that. Pretty smart guy, but I'm going to show for the other people like me who may not be that smart. So here we go. Excel. So if I had a field in Excel, and here we go. If I had there's my date certified, I'm going to right mouse click on that. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to go to Format Cells, and I'm going to say set those as a date. Click OK. That makes sure they're all correct. If one of them erases at that point, it was an invalid date. So resave the file and try importing. They're great questions. All right, I think that was the last question. So we will put this webinar up on our website today, provided I remember to export it and save it. If you do have any additional questions, feel free to email me direct or email myself, Brittany, and Dickie at sales@csiinc.com. Both of those will work. I should also add, I'm going to do it right here on the fly. Watch this. Once again, if you ever have any issues with it, feel free to email support@csiinc.com. You'll get a ticket number assigned to you right away, and we'll respond within a day or two, maybe asking for more information. Hopefully not. So the more information you give us, the better. We do track errors that come in. So if you just tell us, hey, I was trying to do my import yesterday at 3 p.m. and it failed, that'll give us some insight as to what might have failed. But give us the product version, give us a screenshot, give us everything. We'd appreciate that, and we'll get back to you. So those are all the great email addresses. Thanks again. Appreciate you spending the last 43 minutes with us. Once again, we're doing an iMerge, one of these, in 15 days on the 15th of November. Thank you.